Welcome to 28 Days and Beyond,
where we talk about our history, our heritage, and our culture.
I'm Amari.
I'm Charisma. Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back. What's going on?
Hi, Amari.
How you doing?
I'm good.
All
How
right.
are you?
Everything's going well.
Good.
Everything's going well. Today, we wanted to talk about an issue. Like
That's what we do here.
Every day, exactly,
on
right?
28 Days and Beyond.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's just put it out plainly, right? Black communities in this country have historically been oppressed.
Yes, very true.
Right? And that oppression persists till this day. One of the consequences of that oppression has been the denial of valuable resources, right? Whether it be, financial resources, intellectual resources, right?
Yeah.
Creating a system that doesn't validate our ways of knowing, or the resources in terms of physical bodies, people, right? We've been stolen and thrown into the prison industrial complex, so on and so forth. All of these things,
Preach,
premature
brother.
death, whatever, right? Okay.
You preaching.
We know that. What are we going to do about it?
Well, we need to come together.
Really?
Yes.
Is unity a necessary step on the way to the amelioration of oppression, the liberation of African people?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
There's power in numbers. If you're someplace and you have one person making a lot of noise, is it going to have the same impact as if you're someplace like, say, Philadelphia after the Eagles win the Super Bowl and there's just millions of people in one space celebrating, doing things? No.
Yeah.
What do they say? The squeaky wheel gets attention.
It gets attention, but that's part of what I'm saying. Attention from whom?
Well, who do we want attention from?
Exactly. Why is our sort of knee-jerk response to appeal to the very system that's responsible for our oppression? It's like, oh, come on.
Because
now.
I think, well, if you look at the structure and how it is now, a lot of people's knee-jerk reaction is to appeal to the people that are in power, so to speak.
Exactly.
Because that's where the opportunities are. So for a long time, I think people have just gone and done the things that have always been done. But now I feel like we're starting to see people break out of doing that because with so many advances, even in technology, if you look at things like YouTube, I mean, we've talked in great detail about representation, right? So at one point, if you wanted to get a TV show or a film done, you would have to go to a major studio and you would have to, appeal to them and hope and pray and cross your fingers and try to dot all your I's and cross all your T's and hope that they would greenlight you. Now, even with YouTube becoming, what it's become, a platform for people to be able to put out their own content, it gives people the freedom to not have to go through those same necessary gatekeepers and channels to get to their end goal and result. So I think people are starting to kind of circle around to that mentality of not waiting for a handout and kind of just getting out there and doing it on their own. But you still need help to do that.
So let's get back to that, because you said, one person making noise or versus an entire city making noise. But the fact is that after the Eagles won and everybody woke up the next day, their material conditions had not changed.
No.
They were still broke, right? Philadelphia is still the poorest large city in America, right? Like, in other words, what I'm saying is, protest and appealing is not what gets liberation.
Right.
It's when you put those energies into actually doing. So if 1 million people are screaming versus 1 or 2 people who are actually doing, I think we'll see the material conditions that are transformed as a result of the effort of those 2 people will be much greater than the people who are just making noise.
Well put, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Today we're joined by our old friend Rabia,
Yes.
who's going to get into these issues and really talk about, our responsibility specifically to the youth when we come back on 28 Days and Beyond. Welcome back to 28 Days and Beyond. We're joined now by Rabia Carissi.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
What's going on?
How are you?
I'm getting you.
Good.
Doing all right. So, what we're talking about today, and I know you have some pretty interesting views on the matter, so let's just jump right in.
All right. So you guys spoke on the Black community. So something that I realized when I came to college at first was, one, I was by myself. I was the only person here. So I had to start all over again. And one thing that I realized was, like, the Black students here didn't really get together. And if they did, they had their own little cliques that was already forming. And within that, like, we'd never really engaged with each other, never created a sense of community for each other. And it's like, we're such a small percentage in our school. So this idea came where it's just like, when I have conversations with the majority of these kids, like, we always talk about how we can't do this, we can't have that. The school always feels like forces us to feel a lot smaller than we are. But in my head, I was like, hey, if we were given the opportunity to do something, no one will ever have something to say about things that we can actually do.
Okay.
So in my head, that idea came about where it's just like, I'm tired of talking about the racial inequalities, the systematic oppression that we're under as Black and African students. I wanted to focus on how can we build a better foundation for our Black sisters and brothers in order for us to build each other up. So yeah.
So what are some of your ideas as far as ways of going about doing
So one of
that?
the things that I recently did was with the help of Nikki Hornsberry and Charisma Presley.
Another Charisma. You hear that?
Yes, I did.
We were able to create a Black town hall meeting that just happened recently, actually, when I think it was amazing because like we worked with students that would never probably get together had it been left alone. You had athletes, students from different departments, whether it was chemistry, the nursing school, business school, and we basically got together and we actually sat down and talked about the truth, which is the truth is like we're not a community. Is if anything, there's a division. And in addition to it, Villanova Black students has a history where it was a big community to now that transition to that huge division. And we try to figure out the why behind it and how can we go about it to create our own little Wakanda within our school, in the words of Nikki Hornsberry. And so because of that, now I see a lot of students engaging with each other. Students that never spoke before are just giving a head nod as a way to respect your presence and acknowledge it. So it's like that's like
beautiful.
the Black universal code, right?
Yeah,
and
it
it
is.
just something like that's so simple, like it created a huge change in our dynamic in our school. And they're even coming up with so many dope events like game night, which is about to happen soon. Talking to more students that they never thought of talking to. What else? Having even Bible study night for Black women and men. And especially my favorite part is the idea of like Black men actually coming together, because I feel like there is a huge lack of representation of Black men for the students here.
So, what parallels can you draw between the work that you're doing here and the larger Black community? In other words, on the one hand, some people could say, you know, it's a college campus, that's an isolated community, but do you see any sort of transferable qualities that could apply to the broader Black community?
So the thing that people don't realize is even though we're Black, we're privileged enough to go to an institution like this. So hopefully my goal is that even when we leave this institution, we use the knowledge that we gain here and the friendship that we have and the connection that we have to go back to our hometowns to help students that may not have the opportunity that we were blessed with. Definitely for me, like I know that when I leave this school, like at the end of the day, like I have to go back to Harlem. That's the reality of it. Right now we're going through a huge gentrification where there's even a Whole Foods on 125th Street, which is something you never heard of. And I have to figure out what is it that I can do to influence my community to help the kids back in our home, because like some of them don't have the opportunity to even get an education because parents are working so much that they have to take care of their own siblings. The fear of being outside because of police brutality nowadays, and just the stereotype that they can only be basketball players or an athlete or a rapper just to be successful in life, when that's not the case. Education is such an important thing that we have to instill in these students.
Well, you said a lot, and I'm sure you have a lot more to say, and I want to keep getting into it. So we're going to take a bit of a break, and we'll be back with more 28 Days and Beyond right after this.
We're back 28 Days and Beyond with Rabia Carisi.
Yes, we are.
So I want to see, this is like when you're a real reporter, you go, I want to ask you about your vision. In an ideal situation, and because you see what I'm saying, like I think that's a really important foundation to operate from. It's not about, you know, what can we do for ourselves, right? You said you want to go back to Harlem and the work that needs to be done there. For you, what would be the ideal situation, the ideal life, the ideal community?
Ooh, that's hard. My ideal community, which it may sound crazy, but building Black Wall Street within Harlem as a start, where we support Black businesses. We educate our kids from young the actual history of where they're from and their ancestors, and not just the same old European history that they're forced to conform to. I want them to appreciate that the culture that they're from and the love and respect of it, of being from Africa and parts of it within, or even from the Caribbeans as well. Yeah.
So you mentioned having a Black Wall Street. You know, with the history of this country, we know that at one point there was a Black Wall Street. There was Tulsa, and that, you know, Central Park was originally an area that was a Black community. And we've seen time and time again these areas be taken over and these businesses, you know, basically pulled under. And you mentioned a Whole Foods coming into Harlem, and this whole idea of gentrification, which we're seeing everywhere. So what is it that we can do to kind of combat some of these things that have happened over and over again in the past, and how can we try to prevent them from happening again?
It starts off, I feel, with believing in ourselves, which may sound like really reiterating. A lot of people might say that as well, but I feel that nowadays a lot of Black people have given up hope. They don't believe in themselves. They don't believe that their community can make a difference. They don't believe that they themselves can make a difference. And it's just like, oh, if I can't make it, who else can? Who else is going to help me if I'm suffering? But I feel that if we believe in ourselves and actually like learn, I know as Black people, we are afraid to ask for help as well. If we actually ask and help, have people also in effect to reach out and give that help that people need, that helps out, because we don't have that foundation where we feel like we look out for each other or we help each other in that sense. So we need to build that I got your back, don't worry about it, like I got you. That loyalty has to come in as well to help each other.
You got loyalty inside your DNA? How do we do that?
How do we have loyalty?
No, how do we build that belief in ourselves?
It starts with people that actually made it out of the hood, that made it out of Section 8 housing, to actually remember what they were going through and actually coming back and give that hope. Like, if I can make it out, you can too, and I'm going to show you how to do it, so we all can make it out together. Yeah. So.
And I know for you personally, you have a strong sense of giving back specifically to young people. So what are some things that you would like to be able to teach or pass down to the younger generations in terms of Black people and coming together and loyalty and some of these other ideas that you talked about today?
I feel like I want them to learn that they're not just another Black kid in the street that's going to get shot. Like, I want them to learn that there's more to life than just playing sports and being a rapper, like, you know? Because I have little brothers and they would list every single sports that there is in life before they say that they will be a doctor or a chef or anything like that. I want kids...
They would even get down with some cricket?
Yeah,
That's
like,
crazy.
it's crazy. Like, I didn't even know what that was.
About cricket.
I want kids to know that there are people out there that wants to help them and that they got their back. They may not see it, but there's people that's willing to help. But at the same time, we have to be able to listen to those kids that needs those help, because we tend to just tell them this grown folks business, get out of it. Why you talking in a grown folk conversation? We have to listen to them as well, because you can't help no one unless they want to know how to help themselves, and they're the ones that know what they need at the same time too. So.
Well, Rabia, thank you so much for joining us today and for just sharing your ideas, and hopefully we can just keep doing the work to move forward.
Thank you.
We'll be back with more 28 Days and Beyond right after this.
And we're back on 28 Days and Beyond.
Yes, we are.
It's always good to have Rabia stop by.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
She has a lot of cool ideas about how we can advance and move it forward.
What do you think about her ideas?
I think...
Keep it real.
Huh?
Keep it real.
I always do.
That's what's up.
I don't know any other way.
True.
No, I think it's really important to build community and to build that loyalty and trust. I don't really know how we can do it though, because, you know, there are all these stigmas, right? Like, how many times have you heard people say things about, well, you know, I would support Black-owned businesses more, but every time I support a Black-owned business, you know, they do me dirty. So how do we kind of dispel some of these negative, I don't even know, like these negative ideas that are attached to supporting or us supporting each other?
I think one of the ways is to understand that we already have examples around. In other words, like, yo, come on, man, let's keep it real. The Black community is not like, oh my God, woe is me, we broke, we poor, we ain't got no hope.
We're doing okay.
You know what I'm saying? In other words, there are always examples. For every example of, you know, somebody doing you dirty, there's 100 examples of somebody holding you down. We may have a tendency to highlight and focus on the negative, but I'm like, yo, come on, man. You think about any neighborhood you go into, right? If you talk to somebody who grew up in that neighborhood. They know everybody. They understand, you know, what roles people play within that community. Some of them may be positive, some of them may be negative, but ultimately, I refuse to believe that Black people don't have, on the whole, the well-being of other Black people in their communities at heart. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's a narrative that's thrust on us like, oh, you know, crabs in a bucket. But never asking like, yo, but the natural habitat of a crab is not a bucket. How do we get in the, you understand what I'm saying? You feels me?
You just said a lot,
But
right?
you understand what I'm saying?
I do.
Though? So yeah.
I do. And I think everyone, like you said, can point to an example of us supporting each other. Like even if it's just on a personal account of you and your neighborhood or how you grew up. There was a store that I used to go to that was across the street from the church that I attended. And I'm going to admit this because, you know, I should probably get it off my chest eventually. But yeah, I used to save some of the money my mom would give me to put in the collection plate.
Don't involve me in that. I will not be an accessory to that crime. You tripping.
To go to Mr. Chiz's across the street so I could get some candies.
Yep. That's why you got them cavities.
Yeah,
exactly.
I made poor choices in my
poor choices, but you've grown. You've learned from
No,
that.
but yeah, but you know, he wasn't just the guy that had the store across the street. He was the guy who talked to all of the kids and told us to be good and stay in school and just, you know, asked us about our day or how was church or whatever. So he was one of those figures, you know, a staple for me growing up.
Yeah.
If it's your barber or your hairdresser or whoever or your mechanic, like we have these examples of Black businesses and us supporting one another, doing what we're using our gifts to thrive and to do well.
So that I think is the second idea that I think is really powerful is the idea of using your gifts. Because the fact is like, yo, we all do something in life. We have to be intentional about using whatever it is we do to improve the conditions of our people.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So when I worked, the school we started in New Orleans, part of the morning pledge was I will use my skills and talents for the betterment of my people. That's something that is fundamentally important.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So if you're a barber, be that responsible figure in the community when the children come and get their shape up, right? If you're a crossing guard, whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
It's important that you use your skills and talents for the betterment of your people. That, I mean, is the least that we can do. Obviously, we can go on and on.
Yes.
But we're going to have to stop it there. Yet again.
Man. Every time we get going,
it's like, yo, pump the brakes. This has been another episode of 28 Days and Beyond,
where we talk about our history, our heritage, and our culture. We'll see you next time.